Deirdre serves as a coordinator for our project office in Guyana, and it's a very interesting time in Guyana. I suppose some of you are aware of that. But right now, we are trying to oversee the development of the country's national development strategy, as well as the Partnership for Action on Green Economy policy reform activities. And Deirdre has been with UNEP off and on for quite a number of years. She's been with the tourism program in Paris, and she led a global tourism partnership. And in addition to her work in tourism, she has vast experience working in not only the Caribbean, but other parts of the world, advising governments, the private sector, donor, and nonprofits on environmental issues in a variety of sectors, including everything from mining to infrastructure to national parks. So we're very happy to have Deirdre to present on the work in Guyana, and then we're going to open it for questions. Over to you, Deirdre.
Thank you very much, Vincent. And I'm relying on Sean to advance the slide, and I'm going to ask him to move to the next slide right away. Very conscious also of the great appetite and the range of questions that we're already getting. So I'm going to try to do the impossible and to move through this presentation as quickly as possible. And in the backdrop of some of my slides, you'll see some images of Guyana, which should indicate a green theme as well as the vastness of the country. So my presentation is just about in three parts. It's designed to be very short. A little bit about Guyana for those who don't know, and of course, I'm going to focus a little bit on UNEP's activities and then present a range of opportunities. But I do want to say that a lot of what Vincent presented in the opening, as well as Fabian and Chris in their presentation, it applies here in terms of UNEP's work, its approaches, its focus on the SDGs, and so forth, even if you don't see the detail here in the slides. Next slide, please, Sean. So a little bit about Guyana, and for those who don't know, it's set, of course, on the north coast of South America. It's bordered by Venezuela, Brazil, and Suriname as its immediate neighbors and so on. And it's the only land mass within a continental setting amongst CARICOM countries, very rich in natural resources. They're listed here. Oil and gas, recently found gold and bauxite and diamonds, and they've been in those trading areas for some time. And the key export sectors are also in these minerals, in raw form, unfortunately, as well as in rice and sugar historically, and timber and forest-based products. The not so good news, and especially following Fabien's presentation, is small population, only about 740 odd thousand people. Relatively low HDI, Human Development Index, is the second lowest in the Caribbean after Haiti. Poverty is relatively high, about a third of the population, and these figures, the poverty figures, are from 2006. There is another survey that's being done or conducted now, or will be conducted shortly. And many people feel that even though the figures are coming down, they're coming down a little bit too slowly. Extreme poverty is a little too high at about a fifth of the population. So is unemployment, and a relatively high proportion of the sector is informal. And as I mentioned, it's the second poorest country in the Caribbean after Haiti, but you would never guess it because of the abundance of these key natural resources. Next slide, please, Sean. So basically, UNEP's activities started, I would say, in earnest, notwithstanding some of the projects that have been going on regionally and involves Guyana. It started basically in a focused way through the work that started on the vision of the government of Guyana as a green state. And you would have seen in the previous two slides some of the pictures that show this abundance of green, which if you fly over the country, I mean, it's so evident. And His Excellency the President, only in the second year of their 5-year term back in 2017, has this vision, or had this vision, of the green state. And it was very easy to match that with the green economy and objectives of the green economy. So they signed an agreement in 2017, and UNEP established a project office in Georgetown. Guyana became, most importantly, a member country under the Partnership for Action on Green Economy. And then we started to put together the Green State Development Strategy, which is the title that was chosen by the administration for its national development strategy. based on an integrated, inclusive green economy agenda, resilience, low carbon emissions, and of course, people centered. Next slide, please. Next slide. All right. So basically, this slide here, it's quite dense, and it's intended to show some level of depth and breadth of the content of the activities that surrounded the putting together of the Green State Strategy. So this activity went on in earnest for about 9 months, really beginning in January of 2018, and a first draft of the strategy was put together in October and submitted to the then cabinet. And I want to stress that UNEP could not have done this without its partnership approach. And we had very good partnerships with, of course, the funder, which is the Guyana Red Plus Investment Fund, or the GRIFS Secretariat, which is supported in part by the government of Norway as well. Of course, the Ministry of the Presidency was the lead agency, and we worked and reported through the Department of Environment. Of course, our project office is located there. And of course, we worked with the international NGOs, which are best represented and have a long track record of work here in Guyana, which are WWF and, of course, Conservation International, and, of course, University of Guyana, as well as some other stakeholders which were represented and participated in this in the multi-stakeholder expert group phase of it. Now, the vastness of the country and the effort to do consultations across the country really involved a lot of these partners, and we're very, very appreciative of the support and the good relationship that we continue to enjoy with these partners. And on the right-hand side of this slide is what the Green State Development Strategy looks like. It was presented by necessity in 3 volumes, the third of which is the concluding part, and that presents the cost estimates and the M&E framework, which is just being finalized now. But the main policy recommendations and implementation, as well as the annexes in volumes 1 and 2, were presented to the government of Guyana last year in May. Next slide, please. But you can appreciate the level of effort that went into putting this together. And the PAGE program, the Partnership for Action and Green Economy, supported the initial phase of the development and elaboration of the Green State Strategy, with the focus on economic modeling, essentially, in terms of modeling the impact of implementing green economy initiatives. And basically, it found that for every dollar invested, the payback is 4 times as much, which would surprise nobody who works in this business. But basically, the Guyana work program of PAGE involves these 5 UN agencies in partnership, only one of which, UNDP, is resident here in Guyana. But these are some of the studies, and I won't run through all of them, but these are some of the areas and the thematic areas that we're currently working, and some of the future work projections that we're looking at. And of course, we're working through a multi-stakeholder advisory committee, which is very important in Guyana's context in terms of ensuring that the work is relevant, that there's buy-in, country buy-in, and that all stakeholders have a seat at the table and a voice in terms of the work. And it's also, it might be unique to Guyana as well as to the Caribbean, but it's required in the Constitution, consultation on projects and national development and so forth. Next slide, please, Sean. But what the PAGE agenda is a reform agenda, which is very much consonant with the agenda of the Green State. But our office, as a project office, works also with the UN system. And here I show in very, very summarized form the ambit of work of the UNRC office, essentially, and they have the typical number of UN country team coordination groups, and our staff participates in it. I participate in the UNCT meetings, and I have staff participate in the administration groups as well as communication. We collaborate with each of the agencies as well in terms of resource mobilization, working together on proposals. And of course, now it's become everything has been upset by COVID-19, and there's also a response and a recovery component of the work that we're participating in terms of a finance and economic recovery group in which UNEP is participating and lending its voice. our work, as has been said by previous speakers, is more relevant to the recovery side of things. Moving to the next slide quickly. And this is the final slide. I've just identified some opportunities here, but if you remember the presentation of Fabien in Haiti, a lot of the challenges are also represented here in Guyana from a political standpoint as a geographic standpoint. But I have framed out the opportunity and the work that is left to be done, and I have sort of narrowed the scope here to the particular activities that UNEP is best positioned to do. But there's many other dimensions of this that the other UN agencies are participating in. And I framed it out in terms of managing this country's vast array of natural wealth and its human and institutional capital, which is a little bit weak, a small population. They really have capacity issues. And these themes that I've laid out in terms of the premier resource, land, and all the sub themes under there, industry and infrastructure, they really need some strong policy responses, as well as a concerted effort into resource mobilization. And I think that these are presenting some of the immediate opportunities available to UNEP, and there are others that UNEP can participate with in partnership with some of the other UN agencies. So conscious of the time, I'm sorry about the length of it. There's a whole other dimension and a lot of content here, but I will leave it at that, and I would welcome your questions, and thank you for listening.